This is a Film Stories original podcast.
And so, we begin. Ad Astra Prospera. Through struggle. The stars.
Hello and welcome to We Are Starfleet, a podcast on the Film Stories podcast network that covers modern Star Trek and old Star Trek, but in this case modern Star Trek. I'm Cadet Master Craig and I'm here to lead a discussion about the 5th episode of Season 1 of Starfleet Academy, Series Acclamation Mill, or SAM for short. Joining me is a learned group of cadets. We have Mike. Hello.
Hello, I have beamed in. I'm ready to learn.
Did someone shoot you with a gun and force you here?
No, I picked up some random doodad on a planet, and here I am.
Works for me, but don't pick up random doodads on planets. Didn't you read Riker's syllabus? Also joining is the nerdy blogger herself. It's Ashley. Hello.
Hello, Craig. Happy to be here.
And we have a guest lecturer for this podcast. Is he going to lecture? We'll find out. It's Earl Green. Hello, Earl.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I think we're giving too much credit for the whole don't pick up random doodads on planets thing. Come on, flashback a few centuries, people don't even know to not stick stuff up to their eyeballs.
Yeah.
Don't eat that Tide Pod.
See?
It's why they have may contain nuts written on packets of nuts.
Caution, this coffee is hot.
Well, depending where you get it, that might not be a given. Anyway, off track already, but Starfleet Academy. We are on the 5th episode of the first season, halfway point, we're there. So let's start with our thoughts on this episode and some general thoughts about the season in case people have been listening to our previous episodes and don't know what we think in general. Plus it may have changed over the past couple of episodes as well. But if you haven't been listening to our previous episodes, why not? But just in case this is your first time, hi, welcome. Go back and listen to our previous episodes. Actually, 2 questions. What are your thoughts on episode 5 and the season as a whole so far?
Episode 5 is a lot of fun for me. I really love S.A.M. as a character, so the opportunity to get to know her a little better and understand Cask a little more was pretty exciting for me. I just think she's a lot of fun. And then when we see that the writers for this episode are Kirsten Beyer and Tawny Newsome, two of the foremost Trek experts on the planet, I'm like, okay, we're here for a good time. I had a great time with this episode. As for the series as a whole, thus far, we're at the halfway point. I said this because I haven't gotten to be on the show since our opener, covering the first 2 episodes. But overall, this is so much better and way more fun than I anticipated it being. I anticipated that I would probably enjoy it because it's Star Trek, and I generally speaking enjoy Star Trek, but I am having so much more fun with this than I ever anticipated that I would. And I think all these characters are really interesting, and I'm having a great time. Yeah, this is fun. This is very fun for me.
Oh, very succinct.
Yeah, as always.
Mike, what about you?
I can't believe we're on episode 5 already. At the halfway point, please say it ain't so.
I mean, it will feel quick if you binge watch them in an afternoon, to be fair.
For sure. But come on, this show is not just surprising me, but surprising me to a level of, oh, this is what I've been waiting for so long out of my Star Trek. I think it's been firing on all cylinders. The humor is good. The drama is good. Sure, I'm not a teenager, but the teen romance stuff is well done. And this particular episode, listen, I recently experienced a loss in my life, and this episode talked about loss a little bit, and I was certainly emotionally compromised for several reasons, but I thought it was handled so respectfully and so well done in terms of canon, in terms of how we consider canon to be. There was a lot of meta commentary, and I really enjoyed this episode. Learning more about S.A.M. was awesome. I think she's a great character, and how they weaved in her being a photonic is really, really neat. So I'm excited to talk about this one with you guys.
They prefer photonic, yes. So what you're saying is you get older, but the cadets stay the same age.
All right.
Try not to sound too creepy with that one.
Too late.
We are 40 adjacent-ish people that are rooting for young adult romances, potentially, which is an interesting experience. I don't care. I've watched a lot of CW and would continue to watch a lot of CW and can go back and watch these high school shows that I used to watch, so I don't care. I know what I like. Earl, what's your thoughts on Starfleet Academy as a whole and this episode.
I had high hopes for this show because I think there is a real need for the franchise to start skewing younger. And the reason I say that is because I feel like people our age, although I think I may be the oldest person in the room, we're no longer teachable. We've made up our minds who we are, what we believe, what we're going to be. In some respects to our detriment, he said, waving arms around at geopolitical moment that we're having. But the idea of starting to aim the Star Trek messaging at a younger crowd and show empathy is good, allyship is good, that has a huge amount of promise, and I think it's also incredibly important to do. And so I had high hopes for this going in. It has exceeded my expectations by a vast margin. I have really loved this show so far. Even the collegiate stuff that I thought, yeah, that's so long ago in my past, I'm not going to relate. No, it's actually been kind of universal, and that's neat. We really need a Star Trek, and I feel like Prodigy also did this to some extent, at least in the first season, that shows you, okay, how do we get to go from being who we are now to who these people are? More idealized, actualized, better human beings and others. So I've been very enthusiastic about it. However, I feel like I may be the old grumpy guy when it comes to this episode. This felt like the first speed bump to me.
Ooh. Okay. We will get into that. My thoughts on the season so far, I'm actually all in now. I was publicly on record saying that I thought it was a very shaky start in its first 2 episodes. And then the 3rd episode was a massive improvement because it leaned into what I felt the premise should be by focusing on certain aspects that a show focused on college kids would do. Pranks, school rivalries, that sort of thing. Episode 4 I thought was great. It's probably a shade better than this one, but I really liked this episode as well. I feel like it avoids falling into a trap that I was so sure it was going to fall into. Even when it started, I was thinking, oh God, there's going to be one of these episodes. And by one of these episodes, I mean this reverent to Trek of old type episodes that you get in Picard, that you get in Strange New Worlds, where they randomly reference stuff that hasn't happened yet quite often. Lower Decks, it was a feature rather than a bug, but still it's there. But this did it more like Prodigy does it, where the canon stuff is the background. It's to inform our current characters. It's their reaction to it. And I really appreciated the fact that they didn't assume that we all loved this canon element that they explore, or didn't even know what it was, actually, which is something that I found very refreshing. So you find it all out in context of this new character, and if you have that knowledge already, you get a bit extra, but it's far from necessary. So really applaud them for failing to fall into that trap, because I was just so sure it was going to happen. When I saw this particular element in the trailer for the season, I was like, here we go. This is what we're going to get. And then it seems like the marketing tried to entice us in by saying, oh, look, there's a James T. Kirk pavilion, the Wall of Heroes, the disappearance of Benjamin Sisko, all this stuff. But the actual show has that as background rather than foreground. And that's what makes it so good at what it's doing. It feels like it's a true on-ramp for its audience, even if its audience, unfortunately, will never find it based on ratings and reactions and so on. But then again, we're only saying that after seeing the first 2 episodes in the wild. Maybe it'll catch an audience over the next few weeks as we record. So maybe by the time this airs, it'll be the biggest show on the planet. Probably not, but it might be.
Hey, with any luck, maybe it'll do better than Landman.
Paramount Plus's other big hit. Taylor Sheridan, though, he's a hero on Paramount Plus.
That seems like it's just a bad superhero pitch. Okay, he's part man, part land. What?
Yeah.
Or he's a man who stays on the land.
That's what I was trying to figure out. I was like, Landman. How does that work?
It's oil baron propaganda. Yeah.
Got it. I was imagining he was something like Avalanche from the X-Men, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
No, we don't get that lucky.
Well, that sounds boring.
I think Taylor Sheridan's always a bit more thoughtful, though, than what I've heard. I've never actually seen any of his work. But we're not here to talk about Taylor Sheridan, because he's not show running this show. We will dive into the episode. It is, as we've said, focused on SAM, which is an acronym that stands for Series Acclamation Mill, which does kind of feel like 3 words that have been stitched together because they sound cool, or it's a Latin phrase. I have no idea, but it does sound kind of cool. We're focused on her perspective as she tries to figure out this confusing world of, we'll say humanity, even though there's a lot of aliens there and most of them are hybrids, but humanity, this organic society. We don't know how to understand these weird things that organics get up to. And we get a lot of stylistic flourishes, like we get to see her taking notes in her photonic brain. She annotates the screen, she pauses for thought, and everyone else pauses around her. That kind of stuff. I actually feel like this is the first proper use of how a photonic would process information.
Yeah.
Because you don't really get that with the Doctor, for example. For example, there haven't been that many other examples. You never saw Vic Fontaine pausing for 20 minutes to think about what was going on. That's a really unique way of showing that. And it's interesting to see how she sees the world. Because again, it's a perspective thing. We're seeing through her eyes. And the fact that her eyes are unique is great.
I like this idea of getting to see how a photonic's brain works. I like all of the pop-ups, if you will, or the interface. That was something I really liked in the Miss Marvel TV show, because you got to see the inner workings of Kamala's mind, and I felt like I saw something very similar here. I also love that we got to see her handwriting. This is how my brain works. So I was really enjoying watching all of that. I also love seeing how she sees everyone else. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and you're talking about the pop-ups. It's diegetic, isn't it? Because it's actually happening, as opposed to, there's many teen shows where they're writing in their diary or something like that, and you'll see the text come up on screen, and they might cross out text on the screen and things like that, but it's not actually happening.
Right.
Whereas here it is. She's making a list in her brain, and she's adding to it, and crossing stuff out, and whatever else. Yeah, it's good. I love differing perspectives like this. I love shifting focus in TV shows as well, so that's good.
I really liked this going in because it kind of signals this is going to be the off-format show. This is going to be the Space Adventure Hour. It's going to be We Are Starfleet. However, it seems like they didn't stick with it very long. It seems like once we get into pondering the unknowable mystery that is Benjamin Sisko, the handwriting on the screen kind of goes away and the pauses go away. And instead, we're switching to other weird stuff like Caleb's going to reprogram her on. I'm extraordinarily uncomfortable with that idea. I don't want my friends reprogramming me. Friends don't reprogram friends, people.
He had consent, though.
It's still kind of, I don't know.
And all he did was get her drunk.
Yeah, and I question that. That part of it was kind of, it didn't work for me. But I really liked the gag at the beginning, and then it featured in the episode less and less as we went on, and I was like, oh, where'd that go? I was having fun with that. I did like the pauses that Sam had in her own narrative, where you could tell that the moments that she is focusing on, she clearly thinks she's cooler than she is, and we all do that. Let's be very clear about this. We all do that. I kind of loved that because I didn't catch the clue that I was not that cool until embarrassingly late in life, and then just embrace the fact that I'm a giant goofball all the time anyway. But especially thinking back to when I was that age, oh yeah, extremely relatable. So I really liked this gag. I kind of wish the whole episode was done in that fashion, because that actually would have tied it together. I'll get into this a little bit more later. It feels like this episode is a series of ideas. None of them they stick with. It's very disjointed to me. And my problem was not so much with acting or writing, it's just that we don't follow through with many of the ideas. It just seems like a very ADHD episode.
I don't have a problem with that.
They did it in the previous episode as well with Jaden, where the opening credit slide was slightly different as a way to indicate now we're going to see the show from this character's perspective. I think that's cool. I did clock that tonal shift that Earl mentioned. I viewed it as, okay, now we're handling the legacy of the SISKO, and we need to be honorable and respectful of that. So they kind of dialed back on the excitement, on the personality traits, to just let the viewer sit in their feelings regarding the SISKO. So I definitely clocked that shift, but to me it felt natural, and in a way it felt respectful. So there you go. There's a differing perspective on that. But I think getting to know Sam as an individual, as she gets to know herself, is a really cool way for viewers to get into the concept of, we are in the 32nd century, this is a new character, and oh, she was programmed 17 days ago. I've been seeing some early reviews of the premiere episode, and unfortunately some folks aren't too hot on what they're watching, and they use Sam as a way to impress that the point is that these kids aren't Starfleet Academy material, that these kids would never be allowed in the first place. So never mind the fact that they're watching something completely different, apparently. But Sam is really good, and this was a great introduction expansion and elaboration on who they are as an individual. And in the context of learning environment, why does a computer, why does a holographic projection, a photonic, need to learn? Can't they just access a database? So understanding they are literally programmed to be an ambassador to Starfleet Academy to learn more about humanity and organics in general. It's great science fiction.
Yeah, the thing that it does is it draws that line between facts and things that are beyond facts, the intangible things that we as organics completely take for granted because we have some kind of understanding about how the irrationality of them works. And I love the early example of Caleb and Tarima. And she's like, but you're both clearly into each other. Why are you not doing something about it? And they're like, what are you talking about? We've got a lot on right now. We can't. And they don't really have an answer, but they both understand what they're doing on a basic level. Yeah. SAM is basically this show's version of Data in a lot of ways. And I'm thinking about Data trying to understand anger, for example. He asks Geordi, can you describe what happens when you get angry? And he's like, I just get angry. You can't explain it, but you know what it is. That's what it's getting at. And then you have this conflict between her makers and what she wants to do, because her makers are like, but we need to quantify all of this. We need to understand it exactly because we don't know if we can trust organics. They're too unpredictable. That's kind of the point. They are messy and unpredictable, and not everything's quantifiable. And she's understanding that as she goes, or trying to understand it as she goes. Mike, you said 17 days. She's programmed to be 17 years old, but she's a few months old. Just to be technically accurate, in case someone's writing an angry comment as we speak.
I appreciate you looking out for me.
I really liked her. I like that she actively confronted Caleb and Tarima, and they're both like, I don't know, we're really busy and we don't really have an answer, and you're working really hard to pretend you don't care about her. It's like, yeah, but in a cool way, right?
I also love that they put the screen up. It kind of shows how far the producers are willing to go. It's like, yeah, it's the Starfleet Academy of Star Trek, but we also take it pretty seriously, and there's a fun little element here. So here's what happens when you feel romantically involved. Heart palpitations, pupils dilating, blood flow to the X'd out word.
Yeah, apparently she has a filter that doesn't allow her to say certain words. Even though it's a streaming show and you can just say those things. But it's kind of funnier that it's redacted, isn't it?
Yep.
I liked all that. I think that there was a really good basis for the theme of the episode about her trying to come to terms with, it's fine that you can't explain things. It's fine that things are intangible, but they work anyway. And jumping ahead a bit, you had that example of the tomato as an ingredient in gumbo. Some people think it's necessary, other people think it's sacrilege. Neither of them are right or wrong, but they are very committed to what they believe is the perfect ingredient. But there's no such thing as the unquestionable perfect gumbo. It's all preference, but both sides are completely valid. And that's a very difficult thing for a data-driven being to get their head around. And we saw Data reckoning with these sorts of things all the time, didn't we? He was unable to parse certain things for a long time anyway, which made him a little bit childlike. And they've really beefed it up here by literally making the Data character a child. Or a 17-year-old, but practically a child. At least as far as I'm concerned, being more than twice her age, which is grim. Great setup. And I think the theme works really well throughout because they keep coming back to it. They keep coming back to, this is intangible, but it's okay. I can't explain it fully, but it's okay. And informing her lessons as she goes, informing her interactions with her makers. And again, it's the standard. Everyone in the show is trying to please their family, aren't they? They're trying to please their parents in some way, or most people are. And that's just another example of that. She's trying to live up to her parents' expectations and has to learn, you don't really need to live up to your own expectations, not your parents.
I really enjoyed the makers being presented as this all-knowing, quantifiable, and algorithmic-based, big, heavy voiceover. It's very TOS in its vibe.
Yeah, and it reminded me of the Orville of all things.
Oh, yeah. Huh.
Isaac was a similar, he's an emissary for his people to learn how organics work so he can better kill them. So hopefully she's not there for that reason. Big war between the Federation and the Photonics later this season. It lasts 5 minutes like the fight at the end of the previous episode. On to the SISKO then. Let's get into that rabbit hole because, like I said, I was worried that we were going to fall into that nostalgic trap where we were going to spend all this time kneeling at the altar of the SISKO and how amazing he is and how we should all love him. And it does do that, as in he was a great person. He's a historic figure. He was the SISKO, he was the emissary of the prophets, and SAM connects with that because, hey, it's another emissary. I can learn how to be an emissary from him, and I'm going to solve the mystery of his disappearance, which, if you're a Star Trek fan, not a mystery. We know exactly what happened. But I like from the context of this episode, it's a mystery for Sam because she doesn't know and neither does anybody else.
Well, would anyone necessarily today, for example, try to think of some named figure from roughly 1,000 years ago? You have lots of medieval kings, various emperors from around the world, different generals. And how much do we really know or really care to know? They could have been great people, Alexander the Great. I know it's a little more than 1,000 years ago. Stay with me, folks. But nevertheless, does it matter? And I really liked Caleb in this episode when he tells Sam, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that deep.
He's probably dead. I don't care.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I wanted from the show because they wouldn't care. They're young people and it's these people they learn about. You go to school now and you might study Winston Churchill, but do you really care about who Winston Churchill was? Some people will, if you're really into history. But if it's just a class you're taking, probably not. That's really good. And it gets away from the whole, for example, in Strange New Worlds, you had Ortega's going, oh yeah, I'm a big fan of Travis Mayweather from the Archer's Enterprise. The one and only person to ever say that. It's a bit much when it keeps happening, isn't it?
Yeah.
I like this approach of, he was a Starfleet captain and a emissary that lived 600 years ago or however long it was. I don't really care. I'm sure he was perfectly nice. But I don't have to give too much mental energy to thinking about him.
This is where I started to have a little bit of a problem. This and just the structure of the script jumping back and forth like it was playing a crazy game of Frogger, jumping from turtle to turtle to turtle. Is this about Ben Sisko or is this about Avery Brooks? The reason I asked that is not just the dedication at the end, which sent me racing to the internet. No, he's still with us.
As of this recording.
As of this recording, yeah, I guess we should point that out because the other thought that occurred to me was, do they know something about his state that the rest of us don't? Because I know Sirach still has communication with him and is practically one of the only people who does.
Notice that Sam is played by Keris Brooks, no relation.
Yeah.
I kept Googling that. It's like, any relation to...
He has 3 kids and she isn't one of them. At least as far as we know. It's an interesting coincidence that the Brooks is obsessed with the SISKO.
Mm-hmm.
My question there is because, of course, in production history, in pop culture history, Avery Brooks has huge significance. He was the first person of color to lead a Star Trek series. Deserves all the kudos for that. In universe, that gets a little bit muddier because we've already had Madge Sinclair. Heck, we've had Madge Sinclair twice by that point, before Deep Space Nine premiered. We have had black admirals, black captains all over the place, going all the way back to TOS. And so Sisko's meta claim to fame can't be his in-universe claim to fame. That would make no sense, especially not in a future that we've been told is free of the bigotries and prejudices that we have now. So we're kind of leaning on the emissary and the mystery of whatever happened to SISKO thing. And I don't know, for me, it just seemed like it was reverent, it was neat to see, and it also just kind of brings things to a dead stop. Like I said, I feel like I'm going to be the grumpy old guy here, which normally I am very forgiving of rolling out the lore because, and I've stated this theory in the past, I don't think all the Easter eggs are for us. They're not for the old fans. They are there to reel in the new fans. Oh, hey, stay subscribed to Paramount Plus and look up Star Trek Deep Space Nine. That's what this is for. It's not fan service for us. It is there to keep everyone hooked into their streaming ecosystem as a paying subscriber. And I'm not even stating that as a cynical thing. It's actually pretty smart from that standpoint. But I don't know, it feels like we're pouring on the lore and not doing a huge amount with it until we call up this hologram that I was very, very, very happy to see. And I have a feeling you'll get to that in a moment.
Get to it now if you want.
I was so happy to see Sirach. I was so happy to see. My jaw hit the floor.
Same.
Yeah, I definitely hollered.
And by the way, I bet this week's 7th Rule podcast is going to be lit, y'all.
Uh-huh.
We all know now that Sirach is a lovely guy who is currently one of the best ambassadors that Star Trek as a franchise has. Also, I think it's kind of a crime that his career seemed to flame out after Deep Space Nine. He's very talented and so heartfelt in his scenes here. I think we've all seen Sirach do podcast stuff. this wasn't just Sirach as Sirach. I know when Wesley showed up in season 2 of Picard, it was like, okay, it's Wesley, but it's really Wesley being Will Wheaton. This was Sirach being Jake Sisko, because this felt like Jake Sisko, and both the actor and the character very much deserving of an extra inning. I loved hearing that Jake has a family of his own, and that he soaked up all of these lessons about fatherhood from Benjamin. That has a lot of resonance for me, because a few years ago they did Ben Sisko Day, and you were supposed to send in your messages that they were going to relay to Avery Brooks. And on that occasion, I sent a message for the attention of both Sirach and Avery that watching the Siskos on TV when I was in my early 20s, when Deep Space Nine was rolling out as a new show, was kind of a crash course in fatherhood that my own dad didn't stick around to give me. And that I really appreciated that, and that had a profound impact on my life. So really, for me, the best part of this episode is seeing Jake Sisko, even as a hologram of a long dead man. It was just so good seeing Sirach again. You know, like I said, my jaw hit the floor, and as soon as I picked it up, I just had the biggest Chumja stick eating grin on my face. And I'm saying that so no one has to hit the bleep button, because I know what that's like.
And the thing is, when Jake showed up, I was still worried that they were going to fall into this trap. And usually a cameo from a character that we used to know is them falling into that trap, but it very much wasn't that, because it was a very thoughtful appearance. He appears twice in the episode, and the first time it was interesting that we'd spent so much time at that point, only a few minutes, but so much time of the runtime focusing on Sisko the myth. He's the emissary. The Bajorans don't even show images of him anymore. That's probably a good way to get around the fact that they might not have the permission to use his likeness in the episode. But you get the silhouette, you get the outline, and you know it's him, and you see the iconography. So it's the man, the myth. Well, just the myth, the legend. And then Jake Sisko gives us the man. My dad was a guy that loved to cook. He loved baseball. He supported me in everything I did. He was a person that had traits that were uniquely his, and he wasn't just this adjacent to the gods figure that he's remembered as. And that's really important for Sam to realize that an emissary isn't just a role that she needs to fill. There are things that she can bring to that role as a person that are equally, if not more important.
Did anyone notice in the opening credits there was a guest starring credit for mangled poor man's name, as much as I love his work, Chiwetel Ejiofor?
Oh.
I didn't. No.
Really?
Oh, I missed that.
What role did he play in this?
Hold on. I'm opening it. In the opening credit?
Yeah.
All right, stand by.
Surely I didn't dream that.
Oh, no, it's there. Special guest star Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Totally missed that.
The reason I'm asking if anyone noticed that credit is for a split second, I was like, oh my God, are we recasting Ben Sisko? You couldn't do better than that, because I love this guy's work. I have yet to see this guy in something where I'm like, oh, he didn't do a good job. Okay, well, if we got to go there, you couldn't pick better. I can't figure out what role he played in this episode. Was he the voice of Sam's makers?
I bet he was the makers.
He must have been, yeah.
Why would you get someone that big to do that little voice role, and you're not showing him? You're just showing the Pink Floyd Laser Light Show.
Maybe just for the same reason you get Daniel Craig to be a stormtrooper. It's because he wants to.
Because you can.
Well, apparently there was a lot to that, but maybe this is one of those things where similarly he was on the phone and maybe one of the producers was like, hey, you want to do a voiceover real quick? That's the only thing I could think about, because I definitely feel like they would save someone like this for an actual part.
Yes.
Which they still can, because he was only a voice.
Yeah. But I kept having the thought, up until I saw Jake and then got completely distracted, I was like, oh boy, this is going to blow everyone up. We've recast Kirk a couple of times, but the magic of Ben Sisko is that Avery Brooks played him.
Although we did have another actor play Sisko at one point in a video game. Kevin Michael Richardson was Sisko in Deep Space Nine's The Fallen, which is a pretty bad video game. It's not very well made at all, but he does the voice.
Huh, I did not know that.
If you can't get Avery, Kevin's actually a pretty reasonable substitute.
You can watch a Let's Play of it on YouTube rather than play it. It's one of those games that you'll get a couple of levels in and the bad game design will drive you insane. But good catch with that, because I did not catch that. And yeah, it must have been the makers. I was thinking, who's voicing the makers actually? Because they did sound familiar. At one point I was like, is it Patrick Stewart? It sounds vaguely like that, but obviously it wasn't.
Yeah, and who are they anyway? Who is she reporting to? Because that seems like that opens up a huge can of worms there.
Just a photonic hive mind of some sort.
It's the Pink Floyd Laser Show gone sentient.
There's a lot to them in this episode with how imposing they come across, and we are being given this episode story through Sam's lens. So is it a simple fact of an unreliable narrator in that we are seeing the makers through Sam's perspective, and Sam's perspective is they're my parents, they're the authority, you know, I have to follow everything that they do?
They seem to be in an awful hurry, whatever the story is.
You must join this class now. I can't. We're in the middle of the semester.
Yeah.
Now. But I'm here for a few years. Now. Or we're invading. Or whatever they're planning to.
Also, if they get wine wasted on the hologram planet, is it cask of Amontillado?
Oh!
Hey.
That's a far too cultured reference for this group, I think. Or maybe it's not, I have no idea. I'm assuming it's funny. So back to Jake then. Ashley, what did you think of Jake's appearance?
Oh, I hollered. It was so exciting to see Sirach back on TV, but also getting to see adult Jake SISKO that wasn't Tony Todd. Sirach's just a sweet guy, stand-up guy, and as Earl said, one of the best ambassadors for the franchise. So I love that he is getting the opportunity to shine again. I also really enjoyed, because it's hard for me to think about adult Jake SISKO and not think about the episode The Visitor. I wondered, after the finale of Deep Space Nine, are we going to get a Jake that had to grow up without his father physically present in some way? Or are we going to get that same Jake that we got in The Visitor, and he's going to spend the rest of his life tormented and looking for his dad? Honestly, I don't care for the finale of Deep Space Nine. I was really upset by it. Lots of reasons that we don't have time to get into today. So with that, I was really glad to see that Jake was able to accept that and still in some way felt like his father was present with him. I really appreciated that aspect of the story. Also, Tawny as Professor Isla, love all of that very much. I was like, oh girl, you just put yourself in here. I love you. That's exactly what I would do if I ever got the chance to write Star Trek. I'm going to write myself into this episode.
And I'm going to make myself the new Dax as well, just to really self-insert.
Hell yeah. Why would you not? Knowing Tawny is such a huge Deep Space Nine fan, and something that I heard on an episode of the Sci-Fi Sisters podcast a while back is something they pointed out about Picard, is that the Picard series borrows a whole lot from Deep Space Nine, but pays no real homage to anyone in Deep Space Nine.
Mike is making finger guns for listeners. He agrees.
That has stuck with me. And so I absolutely cannot wait to hear what they have to say about this episode, because SISKO was such a monumental figure for them and for Tawny. So it is not shocking to me at all that you put Tawny in the writer's chair and she gets the opportunity to do right by SISKO like the rest of the franchise has not, then let's do it. So all that being said, it doesn't surprise me at all that she could pick up the phone and say, hey, Sirach, you want to do this? And he'd be saying, yeah, let's go. I love that. I love that for her. I love that for Sirach. So more and more of this. Yes, please. I'll take every bit of it.
Vehemently agree with everything that Ashley just said, and that is a fantastic point about Picard, which borrows from everybody and doesn't pay anyone the due respect, in my opinion. It's one of my biggest issues with that whole show in general.
Season 3 of Picard is congratulating itself for being itself, and that's one of the things I hate about it.
Listen, I don't want to get into that stuff, that fanfic season that basically was. But real quick, I just want to acknowledge the fact that I am not black. My wife is, and we have started watching Deep Space Nine. We are in the third season, the middle of the third season, and one thing that she has highlighted repeatedly throughout the episodes is that this is a portrayal of a black father and a black son together. It's very familial. He loves his son. He takes care of his son. He takes an interest in everything his son is doing, and this was airing in a time when a lot of U.S. media was very much all about, oh, there are no black fathers, and blaming certain things on that particular upbringing style. So today, we have a lot of our modern Trek series, and the through line to the more successful ones, in my opinion, take it for what it is that Voyager and DS9 as the DNA for the modern Trek series has made those series significantly, I'm just going to say the word better overall, because it encompasses the rich diversity that all those shows in the previous era had built in, but maybe not necessarily gave enough credit to. Now, again, my opinion, Lower Decks, Strange New Worlds, and certainly Starfleet Academy, certainly Discovery, and even Prodigy lean very hard on that legacy of diversity.
Yeah, and actually, to go back to your point about the Visitor version of Jake Sisko, that was a version of the character that couldn't let go. He couldn't move on with his life, partially because his dad was always popping in and teasing him with the possibility of getting him back without it actually ever being possible. So it would be impossible to move on in those circumstances. But the difference is, in The Visitor, he felt like he'd lost his father, whereas this, he says, he was always there. I can't prove it, but I just know he was always there. Again, the intangible, isn't it? This isn't a fact. It's just the way I see it, but that doesn't make it any less valid. I just know he was there.
Fair.
I was a little troubled by the Doctor's almost casual thing about, oh, you lose people, you get over it.
That's a deliberate, we're going to come back to that reference. It's brought up in the first episode as well, where he says, I'm not interested in being anyone's mentor. So it's clear that he hasn't quite dealt with the loss or losses he's experienced over the centuries in a healthy way. So that'll come up at some point properly.
Oh, so you think this is going to come back? That would be refreshing, because I felt like the cursory nature of that piece of advice or bad counseling or whatever you want to call it, that shocked me.
I think it was supposed to. It's very blunt.
Yeah.
What do you do when you lose people? You get over it. You move on. And then that's the end of the conversation. He's not interested in explaining it. He's not interested in going over old wounds. But he's going to have to at some point, probably.
Yeah, because he's almost like a character out of Highlander at this point. He has outlived everyone he's ever known and will continue to.
Yeah, that will come up at some point. I don't know in what way, and I don't think this was the right episode to do it either, because not his episode.
Oh, it would have been one more detour in an episode that seems like it already has too many detours, perhaps.
But it's good that it's acknowledged. And again, it's a perspective on loss as well. Some people are able to find a new equilibrium and some people aren't. And there's the Doctor. So Jake is the one that did find it. The Doctor isn't.
I just wanted to quickly chime in. Aaron Waltke has mentioned on social media that the producers on Star Trek Prodigy have been consulted a long time ago in regards to how they would be referenced in Starfleet Academy.
I saw that too, yeah.
Love that.
I really do suspect that there's something more to the Doctor in terms of how Prodigy shook out.
There will be, and maybe it'll be a class studying Janeway, or Neil leave the room or something like that. And I think Academy is in a very unique position in the Star Trek franchise, because it is positioned to explore the history of the franchise in a very organic way. So you could have a class about, did Picard do the right thing during the Defector, for example? You could do that, but you would have to do it properly in a way that it's relevant to the current characters, rather than it just being, let's sit and talk about the Defector, an episode that happened. It would start seeming like Clerks, but Star Trek. We're just standing around talking about old Star Trek episodes. But it would be analysing decisions and why they were made and how they were made and what could have been done differently. The Defector is just an example I'm using, but you could use any example. And you could have Caleb arrogantly chime up and say, I wouldn't have done that. I would have done this. And then someone's like, okay, what if you did this and then this happened? Suddenly we're at war with the Romulans. That kind of interrogation of those decisions.
Oh, put a pin in that, please.
That's why I think the SISKO example works so well, because it is framing it through Sam's lens. It's a Starfleet cold case. They've never actually listed him as missing. Well, he's missing, but they've never closed that file. So there's still an expectation that he might show up one day. And it just hasn't happened yet. But like you said, Mike, Caleb's like, he's definitely dead. These mythic figures are always dead. I don't care. Let's move on and talk about something else. So you get that variance of opinion. And Genesis, for example, is learning about SISKO for the first time. So they're not sitting there living and breathing the lore. There is a real opportunity to go over old stuff in a new way through these characters' perspectives. To me, that's part of the unique selling point of the show. We can examine Star Trek through a new lens. And if you do it properly, like they do here, you don't need to know about the episode that they're referencing, because they'll tell you everything you need to know about it in the context of the lesson being learned. Just like you learn absolutely everything you need to know about Ben Sisko in this episode for Sam's lesson.
And they leave enough. I mean, they leave more than enough for you to be more interested. If you have that interest, you can certainly seek out new TV and new characters.
Or old TV. Very old TV.
All on Paramount Plus. Hey, CBS, give me my money for that. I like using the SISKO because it's the perfect entryway. He's a man, he's a myth, and now he's a legend. So being able to approximate someone is impossible as an individual, someone that you'll never get to meet, someone you'll never get to know. How lucky is SAM that she is able to attend Starfleet Academy, have these experiences with Bajorans who revere the SISKO as the emissary, as the prophet, get kicked out, reported to Chancellor Aki. I would have loved a scene to show us, hey, this hologram out here is really disrespecting my culture.
You don't go around grabbing people's ears. Oh, that's what they did to her, was when she entered the room, though. They did that before she did that to them. And it's like, oh, I thought that we just did that. And I love that naivety that she has. She just has no idea how to read social cues. She can't read the room very well. I think that's great. You can apply that to pretty much anybody. I think we've all walked into a room and not read it properly and did something stupid.
This morning.
All the time.
Today at Costco, I went to get my tires repaired, swapped out, and I apparently ordered the wrong size tire online, so I did my dumb thing this morning.
Oh, no.
Oh, dear. Hopefully it gets resolved without too much financial penalty.
Oh, yeah, no, the lady was super kind. She had the right size in stock, so easy peasy lemon squeezy. Costco, man, they just take care of you.
Go to Costco.com and put in Starfleet and you'll get 5% off nothing. They won't give you anything. Try it, see what happens.
This code is invalid. Please try again.
And the lack of seeing a picture even of the SISKO is quite interesting because we're used to him in Deep Space Nine just being a guy that was stationed on Bajor or near Bajor. So he was a fixture in the Bajorans' lives. He was there every day. They could meet him. They could go up to Deep Space Nine and see him wandering around. And no, he was a real tangible representation of their gods. Then he disappears. The centuries go by and he is tantamount to a god himself now, even though he's still known as the emissary, but he's still this intangible presence that they can't ever understand fully because he's not there where he used to be. So it's a great fixture of the centuries moving on, just this idea of everything sort of fades away over time, but there are things that just linger, and the legend that is the SISKO has lingered for the Bajorans, but he's effectively one of the prophets to them now. He was conceived by the prophets.
He's half prophet.
Yeah, which I thought was a weird addition in the final season, still do, but I love that they address it. He's like, yeah, he was created by them and he was always going to be the emissary, rather than just being a guy that was chosen because he's a good representation of linear beings. Yeah, it's one of those weird final season things that just happens in final seasons, isn't it? Any more on the SISKO as he's represented in this episode?
I might come back to it in relation to other things.
Yeah. Although, Earl, I got a question. Maybe you know. Do you think that was the screen-used uniform that they had on display?
Sure looked like it.
I'm going to say it almost certainly was because it definitely had that kind of wear to it.
Yeah.
And so I would be very surprised if that was not one of Avery's screen-used uniforms.
It looked a bit weathered and stuff, didn't it? It looked like it had been there for a long time. They sold off a lot of that stuff, didn't they? Fans ended up owning a lot of the screen-used stuff.
Yeah, but I think they did keep track of who bought what because some of this stuff has kept showing up on exhibition.
I think people donate them to conventions to display them and stuff and then come and get them back at the end of them and all that stuff. So it'll be similar here. Basically, they got a bunch of props that they'd sold to someone and shoved them in a room, and it's the SISKO Museum, which you can go to virtually rather than just beam there. Why do you need to virtually go somewhere if you can just beam there instantly? What's the difference?
If you can't be around people.
It helps you to integrate it into the existing sets if it's virtual.
I do wonder if it would be a busy museum, though, because we're talking about a guy that's probably fallen into obscurity over the centuries on Earth.
Well, I'd imagine the opening hours of a New Orleans museum dedicated to Ben Sisko is probably something weird. One or two guys run the shop. Then there's some girl working at the gift shop, and they keep odd hours. They open at 12-ish. They close usually around 7, 7:15. But if you show up at 6:55, maybe they'll let you hang.
You'd imagine it start in the back room of the Sisko's restaurant.
Exactly.
His dad set it up.
The thing I noticed is that there was a typewriter in there. Are we going to talk about Benny Russell?
Yeah, the Benny Russell typewriter.
I was like, is that the Benny Russell typewriter? That's the only reason I could think of there would be a typewriter there.
That's where my mind went to. I don't think he ever really used it in real life, though, did he? Like, he didn't have a prop typewriter anywhere.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, and did he even talk about the whole Benny Russell thing with anyone? Because it came up in Far Beyond the Stars, and then it resurfaced in that opening two-parter of season 7, where he learns that he is 50% profitable. But I don't think it was something he talked to other people about, so I thought that was kind of weird.
Part of the legend, maybe he told Jake and Dax, and that's how it made it into the mythology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I did like seeing the orb done with modern effects technology. That was cool.
Agreed.
Yeah, even though it wasn't a real orb, so she couldn't have a real orb experience.
An orb experience?
Which orb was it, I wonder? There's many of them.
Maybe it was the first one.
Whatever one that was. The one that was in the Bajoran Shrine on Deep Space Nine, I guess. I wonder if Deep Space Nine's still there. I imagine it must have fallen apart by now. Collapsed in on itself.
Not with Miles O'Brien having worked on it.
Yeah, but he left. He left to teach on Earth.
Yeah, and about 5 minutes later, that's what happened.
One of the pylons caved in.
Nog was in charge, and then,
Yeah, it's still alive and well during Lower Decks, so it makes it a few more years at the very least. I really liked when Sam reached the incorrect conclusion about being an emissary. She concluded that emissaries don't get to live their own lives, they don't get to make their own decisions, and she sees a kinship with SISKO, as in he was created to be an emissary, so was I, and that means I don't have any agency. And then that's where Jake comes in again. Jake tells her SISKO was a great emissary because of who he was, not because he was ordained to be anything. And the prophets learned as much from him as he learned from them. So it was this two-way thing. Emissaries build bridges. They're not there to do what they're told. That's exactly what she needs to hear in order to frame her own perspective on what she is going to be for her people and for the Federation. And I think that's a really strong, important lesson. And that final conversation she has with Jake is very powerfully done, because it is the interesting meditation on loss where Jake says, yeah, I'm not really mad at the prophets. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't exist. Neither would he. He defied them as well. He married Cassidy against their wishes, and they said they would know only sorrow. But no, we had a great time. We had a lot of happy memories after that point. So they weren't always right either. Just a lot of really punchy analysis of what Deep Space Nine was saying, but also explaining it in a way that's relevant to SAM.
Yeah.
And also the danger of trying to relate a historical, or dare I say it, mythical figure's experiences to your own.
Yeah.
There's a line from Star Trek The Motion Picture that McCoy says that comes roaring back to me in that context, which is, we all create God in our own image.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's great for Sam to understand that SISKO as a person was equally, if not more important than the genetic makeup that made him the emissary, or made him chosen to be the emissary. He chose to be the emissary and was also chosen. He didn't have to carry on with that role, but he did. And he made a lot of choices that ran counter to what the prophets wanted, and he was punished for them when he went to fight in that battle at the end of season 6, and Dax died as a result. Indirectly, but it's all in there. He made his own choices. For good or for ill, he made his own choices. He was a human being at the end of the day. He wasn't just this preordained godly figure. He was a person. And that's the important thing. That's what you lose with myth. You lose the humanity of it quite often. But that's why you have Jake here to restore that humanity and explain why SISKO is a worthwhile person in his own right, outside of this title that he held.
I quite like in the scene when Tawny Newsome gives Sam the book. She takes a moment, sits down with the book, unwraps it, and I thought the visualization of her beginning to read, and as the book opens, the letters fly off the page. I could not tell if that was a stylistic choice. This is Sam ingesting information as she's reading, or is the book a future book and Jake SISKO pops out of the book to talk. So there was a little bit of, am I suspending my belief? Am I going on a journey? What's happening in this moment? With that said, of course, I was very emotionally compromised during the scene with a few things that Jake says, which is very prevalent to anyone who's loved and lost before.
Yeah, it is open to interpretation. I took it as there was some kind of holographic impression coded in the book.
Same.
Because she was specifically given the book to help her with the erroneous conclusion that she'd reached. It was, I'm going to give you some extra context here, so it's almost like this book is the missing piece. And whether she imagines Jake speaking to her through the book or whether there's an impression in there, it's unclear, but either way, it's very effective.
Yes.
Kind of felt like it's just a book, because we have context from DS9. There was an episode where Jake was literally writing with a pen on paper, working on his novel. I think that happens in more than one episode, and it just kind of reminds me of something Carl Sagan once said: books are the closest we have to magic. You put ink on a page, and suddenly someone long dead is transmitting their thoughts directly into your brain. And so I think it was perhaps more literally a book, and yet I also flash back to that Sagan quote as that is still a marvelous and magical thing.
It's unclear, and we're left to make up our own minds, which I think is good.
I think it's interesting to point out that in that particular scene, when she opens the book and Jake pops out and he says, "Hey sis," that is a Black cultural thing.
He calls her girl as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, but not in a demeaning way. You're like, "Hey girl."
Colloquially, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because you never heard Jake talk like that in Deep Space Nine, but no one ever talked like that in Berman-era Star Trek.
Well, are you going to be allowed to use Black colloquial things in 90s era Star Trek?
Ah, there you go.
Probably not. I really, really love that. I think that's awesome.
It was also a very strict, no colloquial stuff in that era of Star Trek, unless you're Tom Paris and using it wrong.
Well,
when he said to Sarah Silverman, "This office is really groovy," and she's like, "Groovy?"
Rick Berman had great stamina for keeping productions going and on track, but he also had a giant stick up it.
Yep.
And it ended up creating a timeless quality to the dialogue. It's very stagey, as I've said before. It doesn't age, whereas I've said it before, but I felt like some of the stuff they were saying, and particularly the first couple episodes of the show, will age very quickly because they're using very contemporary slang, which will date those episodes, although they've largely binned that off, actually, in the intervening times, which is good. Because I don't want to be watching this 5 years from now and think, ugh, no one says that. Or did anybody ever say that?
I don't know. I almost would rather have that than do what they do with some of these Star Wars books where you're reading a Star Wars book because they're saying things like "son of a Gundark."
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know what that means. At least with this, I might have a vague awareness of it and could go Google it if I really needed to.
There's a fine line between making something relatable and making something of its own universe, of its own time. We have this idea that Trek is historically very timeless. The 90s Trek, they did these things, they spoke a certain way, or they didn't speak a certain way. But if you go back and you watch the original series, yeah, I guess you could say some of that's timeless, mostly because TV was still pretty new. Science fiction was very new at the time, so everything they were doing was laying the groundwork. And rather than have it be done in accents or slang or anything like that, Gene Roddenberry, Ashley, and Earl, you guys know this. I'm just speaking just to hear myself talk at this point. But also, generally speaking for the audiences, it was, in fact, of its time. It did feel like it was from the 60s, even into the 70s when you had Star Wars. Guys, the people making this stuff are us. They're going to sound like us. They're going to look like us. And ultimately, the product is going to be us. So, if anything, I think the 90s Trek is an aberration, not the norm.
Even the 90s Trek, if you pay attention to stuff like production style or even things like hairstyling and makeup, it is so much of the 90s that you can almost tell exactly when it was made.
Oh yeah, you can always date the visual style of a Star Trek show, but I mean more in the dialogue sense. They never make it too contemporary. Or at least they didn't back then, they do now. It can be off-putting. And to me, in the first couple episodes of this, it was off-putting because you were getting a lot of Gen Z slang, and I'm like, I don't want to hear that. But they've found a better balance in the episodes since then. It's maybe that when they were writing those first couple of episodes, they realised this didn't really work, and then they pared it back a bit, because production teams can still learn as they go what works and what doesn't. So I feel like that may be what's happened here. But yeah, it did stand out that Jake was using quite colloquial terms that he might not have got away with back in the 90s. Or early 2000s.
There's been a lot of interviews with the various makers of some of the previous streaming Star Trek shows where they were talking about not getting real-time feedback, not getting numbers, and they would have to, what was the phrase, put on milk-bone underwear and walk into the dog pound of the internet to find out what people thought of their show, what people thought was working and wasn't working. But by that time, the next season was already written and in production. I think this is the first show where it feels like they have gotten the benefit of the shows that came before of lessons learned.
I can see it.
Because by this point, you were more than 2 seasons into Picard. You already had Prodigy going. You already had Discovery going. This is the first series that feels like, okay, we have taken the temperature of the room and we're course correcting a little bit.
Maybe. It certainly feels like there's more of a sense of identity. It feels like it's not chasing things in the way that other shows are. It feels a bit more assured in what it's trying to do rather than trying to chase a trend. We could talk about Discovery Season 1, but Discovery Season 1 started off being its own thing, and then I feel like in Season 2 they were slightly pandering to some of the stuff that people were complaining about. So for example, get rid of the holo communicators. And now they haven't been back since in the Discovery era. Well, in the 23rd century Discovery era, into Strange New Worlds or back to view screens. I understand why Pike doesn't like the holo communicators, but everybody else would because he's old school. But Kirk would be fine. He would have grown up with them.
I give CBS a lot of eggs on their faces for not sticking it out with Brian Fuller. I think if we had gotten a full vision of what he was trying to go for with an anthology series, it would have been really cool to see stuff like that.
God knows where we'd be now if that happened.
Fair.
Also feels like the AR wall technology that we have now would have made that anthology series a lot more practicable.
Yeah.
Because then most of the set is on a screen and you're not really having to build it. And I think the big objection they had to the anthology idea was, oh my God, we're going to have to build so many sets from so many eras and we just can't do that, dude.
Yeah, as opposed to the old way of doing Star Trek where you spend all the money up front and then you have your sets and then you make your money back as the season progresses because you're saving money on not building sets every week.
Yeah.
We built Voyager, we don't need to build it every week, so we have it and we'll recoup our losses as we go.
Yeah, an anthology that jumped around from era to era would have made that impossible.
I feel like Academy's following that principle as well. They spend all this money on this really expensive set that they love to walk around in, and it is massive. I think it's bigger than the Promenade even from Deep Space Nine, but they're using it every week, and they're using it well. They're getting their money's worth, so to speak. So it's going to be a shame when this doesn't get renewed for a third season, as we have theorized quite often, because they built the sets, quote unquote, which is what they used to say about Strange New Worlds. They might as well make the show. They built the sets.
Yeah, they've made brilliant use of it, playing laser tag in the food court or whatever that court. It looks like a food court.
The atrium, yeah.
Yeah. It's the mall atrium.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, back to the episode.
Oh, yeah.
So Sam's conclusion, when she says to her makers, I have to do this on my own terms, you're going to learn stuff, but it isn't going to be exactly the way you want it, and you're going to have to be cool with that. I was okay with the principle of it, but I felt like it was a little bit too easy. I feel like her makers would come back and be like, hang on a minute, no, you don't get to do that. We're going to turn you off and transfer you home.
I was a little surprised by it, considering how hard-nosed they were on it before, but I do think if someone is confident enough in what they say, they can push boundaries a bit, and I think that she did that successfully with her makers.
I'm just expecting them to come back at some point and be not happy with what they're getting from her.
Parent school night.
Are they going to get summoned in for a parent-teacher conference? I don't know how to say that gentleman's name. Are we going to get him show up, who did the voice?
Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Yes, him.
Nailed it.
Maybe.
Hey, I would not be mad about it. He's great.
Most of the kids here don't have a functional family unit that they can invite to parent-teacher night.
Yeah.
Well, that's something I was thinking of during that scene. Remy's family hasn't responded to him. We have Jaden's family who
Disowned him.
effectively. And now we have Sam's makers who've been just hung up on unceremoniously. So something's brewing with the parents out there.
Caleb's mum is missing and a MacGuffin for the season at this point. It'll come back up at some point. Not a lot of functional family units in Starfleet Academy.
Starfleet's full of orphans.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the modern interpretation of Starfleet. A place where all the lost souls end up.
Yeah, you're either going to enroll in Starfleet Academy or you're going to hop into the first police box that pops up on the street corner. That's what you're going to do if you're an orphan.
Did anyone else feel like it was too easy or it was fine?
It was a bit sudden, but it felt like, oh, we've spent this whole hour doing all of this stuff and cutting away to Blobfish Party with the War College guy, which I want to get into that later. Why we took up so much time with other stuff. The through lines in this episode, and this is my big structural issue, the through lines get so tangled and we drop them and we pick them up and it's just pick something and stick with it, please. It's bad enough that I'm watching this with my ADHD. I don't need you writing it with ADHD.
In one of the previous episodes, episode 3, the Oversight Committee is coming. We hear so much about the Oversight Committee and how important it is. Similar thing here in this episode where they talk about another academy that's out there that Commander Kelrick is very excited about, but we get lip service. The dinner is great. I love the setup, but yeah, Earl, it just drops. They drop it.
You could put that subplot in any episode. It had absolutely no relevance to this one. As fun as it was, I thought it was quite a fun collection of scenes, but it was completely pointless. In my review, I don't even mention it.
Oh, interesting.
It's not necessary. I don't have a strong take on it. It was fun, but had nothing to do with anything else that was going on.
Can I ask a question? Does anyone here watch Red Dwarf?
Yes.
All right. Does War College Guy give you gigantic Arnold Rimmer vibes or what?
Yeah, he does.
Okay, it's not just me, thank goodness. He is so amazingly bad at everything he does. And we're spending the whole season just emasculating this guy. And it makes me wonder if they're setting him up to do something really dangerously unhinged later to prove, well, this is why I'm in charge of the War College. Just glue a letter H to his forehead and be done with it.
There was this weird thing, he's heating up a lagoon in the ocean and he's using weird alien tech to do it, and he's inviting this ambassador. I got the sense that he was into this ambassador or something like that. And then you have this whole, you abandoned Starfleet, and Ake says, you shouldn't be making judgments without context. No one will trust you if you keep doing that. And then that's it. That's all that happened. There's no analysis. There's no real meaningful development in any way. It's just a selection of scenes that happen.
Yeah, it's just another area where we can make fun of this guy who, by the way, needs to return his uniform to the Babylon 5 costume department stat. Because he looks like he is in Earth Force and not in the Federation War College.
Well, I suppose he effectively is in Earth Force, actually, because we discussed that in episode 3, didn't we, Mike?
Yeah.
The War College is a Earth institution.
That's so funny.
It's just every time we cut back to Blobfish Party, it just brings everything to a stop. And the deflating of the blobfish, yes, that's how I feel every time we come back to these scenes.
It's one of those things I like to talk about that's more fun for the actors than it is for the audience.
Yes.
Completely superfluous, though. You don't need it. You could ditch it and nothing would change.
With all that said, I have to ask you guys this question. A lot of commentary is taken up by the seasons of modern Trek not having enough room to breathe and not giving characters time to breathe and get to know them a little bit. If you've got 22, 26 episodes, great. Here we only have 10. So everything you guys said is in fact valid. I just want to also submit for consideration that perhaps these scenes were to give us a little bit of humanization of Chancellor Aki and Commander Kelrick, as they are butting heads a little bit.
Yeah, that was definitely the intention, but they could have folded it in more neatly as if it wasn't a completely different thing that was happening that had nothing to do with anything.
I actually thought of a way this all could have been integrated much better. You could have a scene where Sam bursts into the Blobfish dinner party and wants to test drive her dissertation. As you do, you go inflict this crap on your advisor. How'd I do? How'd I do? And she's gushing about SISKO's family life and his love of tomatoes, and War College guy, who has War College knowledge, is like, oh yeah, but this was a guy who won a war back when Starfleet wasn't a bunch of softies and knew how to fight. Let's talk about how he brought the Romulans into the Dominion War on our side, and just blows her mind with that. And suddenly she's got to reconcile, okay, great dad, loves tomatoes, also loves a little bit of war crimes as a little treat. Does she report that back to her folks? That's how you could have made it all fit a little better and justified the presence of these scenes that feel like they were sketches that were written somewhere else in the season. Oh, well, we filmed them, but we ran out of time in the laser tag episode. Let's put them here.
Yeah, she bursts in when they're in the middle of some other job that they're getting on with because they have other responsibilities. Then it gives you a window into the fact that these officers are doing other stuff.
Yeah.
I functionally had no issue with the dinner and getting to see the Doctor on display a little bit and Jet Reno and their little interplay. I would never put it upon anyone to just slap the Doctor away real quick, but Jet Reno can do it.
Also, Earl, what do you mean? SISKO had nothing to do with the Romulans entering the war. That was just an unconnected event that was just lucky. It just happened.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's the official record. I just feel like that would have added some weight to the whole thing and would have connected all these disparate pieces together a bit better. And maybe it didn't need to be that. Maybe it needed to be something else in the Dominion War. Maybe it needed to be how he dealt with, what's-his-face, Krull guy, Eddington.
I would have actually let them away with someone gushing about the Defiant. He built a ship that was a set of guns attached to an engine.
Yeah.
The Borg took his wife and he was going to take everything from them. That's who SISKO was.
Everyone responds to the Borg like that.
Yeah, but SISKO built a ship that was designed to kill them.
Yeah, he was the first one to start delivering on it.
SISKO process your grief a little better. I've put it in the notes that you have Sam's prayer to SISKO, because I had no other better way of describing it. I do feel like it's a prayer. I think she's had a bit of a spiritual experience in this episode, but she's appealing to him as a person by praying to him as a deity, which I find quite an interesting contrast. And she's like, yeah, if you need someone to talk to, hit me up. I'll be here. I like that personal touch.
That's an interesting way to think about that, Craig. I hadn't considered that, but that's exactly what that was.
Yeah, it's a prayer.
Yeah.
She's a bit more spiritual than she was when she started, which is fine. Because SISKO started off being a bit atheist and then became spiritual as time went on, I would say. The Avery Brooks narration, I don't know if that's new, if they managed to get him out of his recluse hiding place and record a new thing.
Or maybe that's our mystery guest star.
I was going to ask if that was from an episode or if that was something new.
I didn't recognize it, but that doesn't mean... I mean, SISKO said a lot of stuff.
I've got a folder full of scripts, and I searched that whole folder for key phrases from that quote and found nothing.
Okay.
Or maybe did it for an audiobook or something.
It's possible. Or there were also other things he did, like the Captain's documentary, where each of the actors who played captains sat down with, I think that was David Zappone's production company.
The William Shatner one, yeah.
Yeah, that has kept doing all of the Star Trek documentaries since then that are not done by Brian Volkweis. The good ones.
Yeah, I had no idea if it was a new Avery Brooks thing, and I think maybe when the episode airs, they'll talk about it.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to hear. I feel like that must come from an audiobook or a lecture or something. Keep in mind, Avery was also a teacher who was teaching the whole time he was on Deep Space Nine, and infamously, he would videotape lectures for his classes in Starfleet uniform and send the tapes to them. Oh, you talk about attending Starfleet Academy, there you go.
Hey, there you go.
In that documentary you're talking about, that was the first time I really realised that Avery Brooks is a bit of a weirdo, a bit of a charming weirdo.
Oh, yeah.
He has his jazz brain, doesn't he? No one's quite at his wavelength.
Every jazz musician I know is just a little Avery Brooks-ish.
Yeah, we're all pretty weird, can confirm. As a sax player and a drummer.
But regardless of where it came from, the quote sums up the thesis of the episode. It's the idea of things are intangible, and the divine laws are much easier to understand than human ones. The human ones are confusing and all over the place, but you can understand them. It just takes a lifetime.
Only love can interpret.
Yeah, and we don't know if it's really SISKO speaking from beyond the wormhole. Again, it's that spiritual ambiguity, which I'm quite into. It was a nice touch. I just want to know where it came from.
I'm doing some real fast Google foo here to try and combine all the quotes and what we know, and I do see Thomas Aquinas has some work on it, just in regards to love, law, and happiness, the interconnection between divine law, human law, and rational love. But I don't see anything on that actual quote.
We're recording a couple of weeks ahead of the airing of the episode, so maybe they'll talk about it after and we'll find out where the SISKO quote came from. Someone got in touch with him somehow and made him record something for this.
I'm going to say that could only have been Sirach. You also have to keep in mind Avery is pushing 80 at this point.
Yes.
And he may not sound like he did in the 90s.
Yeah.
I certainly don't sound like I did in the 90s, and thank goodness for that.
I was a child in the 90s, so I definitely don't sound like that now.
Oh, you youngsters.
And connected but also separate, we have the bar visit, which I quite liked. There's a bunch of kids going out and messing things up in a bar.
Oh, yeah. We didn't talk about the bar.
Oh, yeah. That gave me 2009 vibes.
Definitely.
And you get a reminder of the War College Starfleet rivalry as well. And it's good that that's actually part of the DNA of the show rather than a one-episode thing that's just there for one episode. It's nice that we're going to get more of that. And it's the same guys as well. So even though they're not well-developed characters in their own right, we have a sense of them as a recurring presence.
I don't need them to be well-developed.
No, I don't need it either. But I'm glad that they're there as a fixture and they continue to be there. I think that's a good shout.
The bar scenes are kind of a throwaway, but it was all worth it to see Sam's classmate's jaws hit the floor when she punched the Romulan girl out. Yeah. That one scene, just that one shot, it's like, okay, this is worth it. It's kind of stupid, but it's worth it.
That was really fun. Drunk Sam, pretty fun. Also, Carice Brooks is a dancer, so getting to watch her just dance throughout this episode at different points, whether she was drunk or not, was just awesome. I loved every second of that.
She was so good in this. She was good in every part of this.
Yeah.
She is a delight. I'm so happy whenever she's on screen. I love her energy. I love how she is just herself and doesn't know how to interact with people. I'm like, girl, same. I love that about her. And in that way, she does read a little bit neurodiverse, even though we know that she is a hologram just trying to figure out how to be human. But at the same time, I do appreciate that it reads neurodiverse. And I love that.
And I like them coming up with a bit of their own young person language as well. They refer to going out to a bar as a priority one mission. We're all doing this. I like that. I want more of that. I think that's a really good shorthand that they can develop as they go.
Yeah.
I'm going to integrate that into my music bingo shows. You are here with DJ Live Long and Party, and this is a priority one mission. We are going to have fun tonight.
Incoming transport.
Incoming transport.
That was all good. Still not getting a lot of Genesis, but it wasn't her episode.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Not yet. I'm sure that will happen later.
If the back 2/3 of this episode had completely skipped out on the Blobfish Party, and it was just Sirach and Carice Brooks having a conversation, I would have been so there for that.
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
There's lots of cool stuff in here. I think I'm actually less grumpy after listening to you guys talk about it than I was coming in, but I'm still gonna die on the hill that there was little to no cohesion.
Fair.
Fair.
One thing I gotta say, and I mentioned this previously in a recording the other day, is this wasn't really like a Caleb-heavy episode.
No, but we always check in with him, don't we? Every episode.
We do check in, which I think is important. But one thing I was concerned about with this series was them leaning heavily on a singular hero type character again. And the fact that they are truly pivoting away, giving us slices of life, perspectives of super rounding out the cast. We're getting to know the bridge crew, right? And we've been waiting for this. So I think it really works to have these episodes, so much time spent with those characters and not with the titular hero. It really shows that this is the ensemble that we have been looking for.
Yeah, and we get the significant development in that he and Terima get together in this episode, which in some ways feels a little bit soon, but I'm also bearing in mind it's a 10-episode season and the developments are going to come a lot quicker than they might otherwise. But there's always the lingering question in young adult shows like this that once you get your unrequited relationship together, is it interesting after that point? The answer is quite often no, but we'll see.
I don't know. They're at a bar, they've been drinking, they've been staring at each other across the room, and you take this little opportunity to steal away.
It's now or never.
I bet you at least one of them in the morning is going to be like, oh my God, what did I do?
Maybe. And it might be as simple as that, or their relationship might evolve into something more interesting. It does happen. As a veteran of the CW, I know that once you pull the cord on putting your characters together, they quite often become less interesting as a couple.
But I will say there are enough obstacles between these characters to make that story interesting.
Yeah.
And it's good that they haven't prolonged the flirtation with too much angst as well, because I always hate when that happens. And there isn't a hint of a love triangle. I was expecting there to be a love triangle.
Yay.
It's the future. It's got to be a love hexagon because the future is all hexagons.
Some kind of romantic shape.
A love rhombus.
Well, I was half expecting some kind of Genesis, Remy, Terima, Caleb connection thing.
Are you guys clocking Jaden and Remy and now the War College kid, Kyle?
Yes.
I wasn't clocking Jaden and Remy.
I was definitely clocking Jaden and Kyle.
Yeah, definitely Jaden and Kyle.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten his name until you said it.
Oh, I just heard because Kyle, it means Kyle.
Yes.
Means he's going to drink Monster Energy drinks all day and punch a hole in the wall. The War College.
That's right.
And then wind up transporter chief somewhere.
He's so mean.
I like the bar scene, although that bar looks not like my scene at all. I would not enjoy being in there, I don't think.
Did anyone notice that the server in the bar scene was Jackie Cox, who co-emceed the Star Trek Day coverage a few years ago?
Yes.
Did
Oh,
not.
I noticed that it was an Orion in drag. Was that right? Did I get that right?
I didn't really notice the species. I was just like, oh, it's Jackie Cox.
I saw all green. I assumed Orion. That may be racist of me.
It could be Orion, Ashley.
Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry.
What shade of green?
Interesting that in the 32nd century where there's no money and stuff, people still want to be bartenders.
Hey, I might enjoy being a bartender, be perfectly honest. I get accused of having a side hustle because I know how to do it.
Listen, if I could pay all my bills, live my life, and have a great time doing it, and all I had to do was bartend, I would do that. Hell yeah. Absolutely.
I would hate to have to wipe down that LED screen bar, though.
Oh,
you spill
yeah.
one drink in that puppy, it's gone.
Yeah.
There'll be a dot somewhere that'll do it for you.
Yeah.
Or it'll be made of some kind of anti-staining material, some futuristic programmable matter material that doesn't get stained from you spilling a drink on it. That's the magic of the future, I guess. But yeah, I don't have much to say about it other than the fact that it is a very believable young person thing to do. Let's go out and drink. And SISKO used to go to a bar that was in this position. Not the same one, but he used to go somewhere. I don't imagine SISKO is a LED nightclub guy. I feel like he was always in an old man's pub.
No, I feel like he was tagging along with Curzon wherever Curzon went and
100%.
Got into all kinds of trouble just for doing that, as you do.
I suppose we should talk about it then. What did we think of the Dax reveal? The fact that Dax is still alive in the 32nd century, and how long do symbionts live? Jesus.
How good are their memories? You still vividly remember all of this 800-something years later. I love that.
I didn't have a problem with that. I actually thought it was quite good. And I actually thought Tawny Newsome was channeling a bit of Terry Farrell in her performance.
100%.
The inflection was there, wasn't it?
I feel like it was just enough for folks like us to Leo DiCaprio pointing at the screen meme.
Ah.
Am I the only one who didn't clock that was Tawny until I saw the end credits?
It took me a while to clock it. It took longer than it should have.
Me being moderately faceblind, I was really impressed with myself that I clocked that it was Tawny right away. I did not clock the Dax mannerisms, though, so good on y'all.
We're so used to her being so out there, so large.
Right.
Yeah.
So you don't expect it when she's being more subtle.
Yeah.
You can't hide that massive, beautiful mane that she's got.
She tried.
I was like, who's got hair that big? Tawny. It's gotta be her.
I wasn't sure, and then I shut my eyes, and I heard Mariner. And I was like, oh, there we go.
Ah, there you go. Good move.
The Terry Farrell inflection was especially there when she said, Benjamin would have liked you. He liked people that got in trouble for the right reasons, or whatever the line was.
That was specifically the line. I was like, it's a Dax, it's a Dax.
Back when Discovery was doing Trill stuff, that's when I expected Dax to show up.
Yeah.
And so I was almost surprised when Dax turns up here. But it makes perfect sense. It doesn't break the show.
A welcome surprise.
Yeah.
Loved it.
It doesn't make too big a deal out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not as if the whole episode was framed around, oh, I wonder who this mysterious, definitely not Dax person is. It was just a professor that she would speak to, and then turns out to be Dax. It wasn't that we were waiting for the episode to catch up with what we already knew. The fact that she's Dax is, for the most part, irrelevant to the episode, because she's there as a mentor figure for Sam who guides her in the right direction on her investigation. And then when she learns what she needs to learn, it's like, well, I knew the guy. That's why I've got that book. It was a very nice touch. I don't know if we'll see her again. I don't think we need to, particularly.
I can almost guarantee you that we are definitely going to see Tawny Newsome in makeup again, one way or another.
Yeah, she wrote herself apart. She's co-producer on the show. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Season 2 will be studying the mystery of James T. Kirk falling into the Nexus and coming out of the Nexus.
Yeah.
Please don't do it.
No, they'll loop in Khan somehow.
And how they harvested his corpse and put it in a space station somewhere.
As you do.
Yeah,
As you do.
that's what Starfleet does.
Hiding in Section 31, because that's not weird at all.
Paul Wesley turns up because he'll be the Kirk in the scenario. He finally gets to play acting his age, so it'll be fine. 300 years old, or whatever it is.
Yeah, we need someone older. Bring in Chris Pine.
They can't afford him. That's why we didn't get another one.
I won't be surprised if Tawny shows up again as Professor Isla Dax. Love that, love that. I just thought this was a really cleverly done episode. I really had a good time with this one. It's going to be interesting to see how folks respond.
Yes.
Yeah.
Honestly, outside of what we do here and with the Mission Log crew, that tends to be my fandom engagement with Star Trek, because y'all are thoughtful and reasonable people and you bring good critique, but you're also not just pooping on it to poop on it. And I feel like because it is a SAM focused episode, everybody's gonna be pooping, and I'm like, you go do that somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I kept trying to look beyond that, because it was, to an extent, trying to ignite that part of my brain that loves Deep Space Nine and is a big fan, and look beyond that and think, what's the episode actually doing with that? Like I've said before, they've had so many empty references that are just designed to excite me because it's that thing that I remember. But I feel like this pushed beyond it.
Yeah.
It was very appreciated. I just don't think a lot of modern franchise media is putting that kind of effort in. And I did not expect this to be the show that would do it of all things.
Yeah.
But happy to be proven wrong, because the last thing I'd want to do is sit and watch these 6 episodes and think, God, this is a chore. I have to talk about it, I have to write about it, like I felt with Picard, essentially, in its third season.
With this show in the run-up, too, yes, I had gotten screeners and I was able to watch the premiere and the second episode ahead of everything. And going online and just seeing the early commentary the week before it actually officially premiered, when they had the LA and the New York red carpet for everybody, and they started with some of the early reviews. And right out of the gate, some of the commentary from the fandom, at least a solid third of it, is just like, no, it sucks, it's this, it's that, it's the other thing. And the only thing I can think of, now we're on episode 5, the show is doing, in my mind, really above expectation, above where I think even people looking forward to this show really realistically thought it was going to land at. And I kept telling everybody in my rebuttals, listen, if you keep an open mind, you are going to be surprised, and happily so. Just keep an open mind. Don't try to ascribe. I say it on this show all the time, being 40 years old. I don't have to be 22 to get it. I remember being 22, and sometimes that's all you really need. Earl, I love what you said at the top, too. Are we teachable still? And I think that's what this show is also somewhat asking us, because when we pivot to the adults, maybe the scene with the Blobfish dinner wasn't so much, but I do like going back to the adults all the time. I think what they're doing too is very important. They are teaching each other, and there are new partnerships forming and new friendships possibly forming. As an adult, how do I make new friends? So this is potentially teaching us one way or another.
I think you're always capable of learning, even if you are set in your ways. If you are open to it, then it is possible. Didn't Janeway say in Prodigy Season 2 that she was learning things from these young, not officers, that she never thought she would? So it is possible, and we're probably going to get some scenario where the adult characters learn from the kids in some way. The Doctor's going to have to learn to process his grief, and I feel like he's going to do that by bonding with someone. Don't know who. Sam would be the logical choice, but again, that's getting the holograms to chum up. Could be anybody that he opens up to about various things. But again, if they do it right, it will be the young person's story that the Doctor adds to by opening up to them, perhaps. I guess Caleb would be a logical choice in that respect, because he struggles with that. Something to think about. We might get it in the coming episodes. One other point I definitely want to get in was I really like the metaphor around Sam feeling a kinship with the theremin. It has no strings or keys, yet it creates music that inspires hope, love, and connection, builds bridges through something that's present and not tangible. This is just me reading from my review. It's paraphrasing what the episode actually says. So, like a photonic, it's both there and not there. There's something intangible about it that has an impact on the world. That's what she's doing, and that's what she's learning about intangible things. So her kinship with that instrument makes a lot of sense. Plus, Star Trek and theremins as a meta reference.
Yeah, I liked the meta aspect of that. That's always amusing to me.
Just real quick, the original Star Trek theme, it was not a theremin. It was actually just soprano vocals.
Yeah, they never used a theremin in TOS.
Correct.
I think they used it for sound effects sometimes.
They may have, but all of that stuff is in the big CD box set, and there's not a theremin anywhere in there. In fact, at the time, Gene was very forthright in briefing the people who were brought in to score the show. I don't want to hear electronics, synthetics, anything like that, such as they were in 66, 67, what have you. I want this to be anchored as human drama, and so don't get cute with it.
I feel like there's some kind of association anyway.
Well, it's kind of culturally associated with old sci-fi.
Yeah. Forbidden Planet, most notably.
But it's a great metaphor for a photonic person as well.
Agreed.
Intangible, but creates an impact.
Yeah, it's a very good metaphor for that.
Any final things on series acclamation mill before we go tell our parents to leave us alone and get on with our lives?
I just really wish it had all been glued together a bit better than it was. Especially cutting to the adults doing silly things. Seemed like there was some sketch comedy stuff going on here. Felt like a bunch of short treks glued together, in a way. And, hey, I love short treks. I miss short treks like crazy, like you wouldn't believe.
Not very short treks, though. Nobody misses those.
No. We had a much better use for snot earlier in this season of Starfleet Academy than anything very short treks ever dreamed of. But the disjointedness of it, even the stuff with SISKO, as effective as it was when they did it well, it still struck me as being about Avery Brooks and not about SISKO. Kind of reminded me, does anyone remember back in 91, in the run-up to Star Trek VI? Of course, you might not, because I'm old.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I was 6.
I hadn't watched Star Trek yet and was also 6.
I was 4, 3 or 4.
Sorry, Earl. We're not helping you. Please tell us about ye olden days.
Okay.
Of 1991.
There was a movie show on MTV called The Big Picture, and they did, and you can find this on YouTube in various degrees of very low quality, they did a half-hour special for Star Trek VI, but they did it as a mini-sode of Next Gen, with Marina Sirtis as the only cast member.
I have seen this.
She is on the bridge of the Enterprise, supposedly so intrigued because they just did unification, that she is going to now look up more facts and figures on Kirk and his crew, but what it actually is it's just a very nicely dressed up edit of the electronic press kit for Star Trek VI. And it's surprisingly well done, but it's over and done with because for it to last any longer, it would have outstayed its welcome.
Sure.
This almost feels a bit like that. It's like, okay, are we talking about the character or are we talking about the actor? Are we talking in universe or are we going completely meta with it? I don't know. This feels in places like a challenge to the fourth wall that the fourth wall doesn't need and the audience doesn't perhaps need. But again, I get it that they are making it tantalizing enough that you too can immerse yourself in the lore of the SISKO watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine on Paramount+.
It'd be interesting to get perspective of someone that doesn't know Deep Space Nine at all.
Yeah, that's going to be where we find out if this worked or not.
It worked for me because I can imagine it gives you enough to go on, but I don't really know because I've seen Deep Space Nine a million times. So I can never have that perspective truly. I can imagine that it might be fine, but maybe it's not. Maybe it isn't enough, or maybe people don't really care. I don't know. There's bound to be plenty of viewers that are watching this show that haven't seen Deep Space Nine. None of them are accessible to this podcast at this moment in time, but if that's you, leave us a comment and let us know. Ashley, any final remarks?
This episode really worked for me. I got a little choked up at the end. I do love SISKO and what he represents for so many people. I just couldn't help thinking about what the Sci-Fi Sisters said in that podcast a couple years ago about how so much of Picard borrows from Deep Space Nine, and yet Deep Space Nine gets no credit, no love. And so I felt like this is Tawny in particular correcting that, and rightly so. I think this was necessary and needed. So I'm glad of it, and reiterate, I would love to hear the perspective of someone who hasn't watched Deep Space Nine. Does this make you want to go watch Deep Space Nine? Does this pique your interest at all? I would love to hear if this episode was accessible for you in that way.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting experiment, well, for us as lifelong nerds of the franchise to find out. So again, if that's you, let us know, please. Mike, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I love how DS9 and Voyager Starfleet Academy is. You can feel it in the DNA. It's fun, it's quirky, it's also smart, it's caring, there's family there. It just feels so good to have a Trek show like this again. Strange New Worlds, I love season 1, season 2 was great, and then season 3, we talked about it, it just didn't quite hit the same marks that they were going at. So I feel like we came into this show on maybe a little bit of a down note, undeservedly so, and just blown me out of the water. I've been finding the emotional beats in every single episode so much, and this one really delivered for me. In talking with you guys, Earl, I definitely see what you mean. It just felt like some things are a little bit over the place, but overall, if this is Starfleet Academy, I'm going to be really surprised. I guess not really surprised considering how Paramount is these days, but if they don't get renewed for a third season, that would be wild to me.
I don't think we should beat ourselves up for being cautious about it before it came on. I think that's very well founded based on what we've had recently. I think that's fair enough.
True, Picard does exist.
Yeah, Strange New World Season 3 also exists, so I think we're right to be cautious. So my final thoughts are, I'm all in on this show and I didn't expect to be. A shaky start with episodes 1 and 2. Episode 2, it's on there. I liked it, but also I didn't think it was a Starfleet Academy episode. It was a Star Trek diplomacy episode with kids in it, and Vance representing the Federation government for some reason, which is something that I still will never understand. But episode 3 settled into, this is a Starfleet Academy episode. I'm starting to understand what the show is trying to be. Episode 4 did that even more, and this is an extension of that. Still want to see a few more classes. We're not really seeing much of that at the moment, but the fact that they're studying and lessons and all that is very good. So it's on the right track, and I am excited to see more. I am looking forward to seeing what this show has to offer, and I really hope it gets more than 20 episodes, assuming this level of quality continues to persist. We have no idea what's coming up in the rest of the season, because we only have one episode after this one in our screeners, so there are 4 episodes after that we have no idea what's coming. I imagine a little bit more Paul Giamatti and whatever that entails.
Oh, yeah. I forgot.
He's coming back at some point, right?
We're throwing a blobfish party for him.
He seems like the kind of guy that would enjoy a bit of a blobfish party. There ain't no party like a blobfish party. Pleasantly surprised, and I'm glad my caution was incorrect in the sense that I ended up really enjoying this episode and the previous 2 episodes more than I expected. So before we wrap up, should we go around the horn and explain what everybody's up to outside of here? So Earl, as our guest lecturer, where can you be found out in subspace?
Ashley and I are still co-hosting Genealogy, which is a ramble through Gene Roddenberry's back catalog of stuff that he did before Star Trek. Hopefully we get to keep doing it long enough to cover stuff he did after Star Trek before returning to Star Trek. But as of right now, we are in the 1960s freelance era where he's just throwing pilot scripts out there left and right before he finally lands a show of his own with the Lieutenant. Can hear Genealogy at missionlogpodcast.com.
Ashley, outside of that, you've already been partially introduced, but I know you do other stuff.
Yeah, if you want to hear my dulcet tones where I hopefully sound a little less congested most of the time. Aside from Mission Log Genealogy, like Earl just said, check out missionlogpodcast.com for that. I'm also found here on the network at Podcast 616. It's podcast-616, talking all things Marvel and MCU related. You can also hear me on the Video Store podcast, where myself and 4 other rotating hosts in a round-robin fashion offer movie recommendations, kind of like what you would get at a video store. Check us out at videostorepodcast.com. Otherwise, you can read my words on my blog, nerdyblogging.wordpress.com, where I write about film and television and other nerdy things. That's eventually going to become thenerdyblogger.com, date TBA. So if you're listening to this in the future, check out thenerdyblogger.com. You can also read my words on fangirlish.com. I'm writing about film and television there, mostly Star Trek, covering all of Starfleet Academy. So you can read my episode-by-episode reviews there. And I think that's all the places.
I'm sure there's a couple hours left in the day that you could fill with some other stuff.
Maybe socials, Facebook, Mastodon, and Blue Sky at The Nerdy Blogger.
Mike?
My name is Mike Slamer, and you can find me at www.mikeslamermusic.com. If you are into things like alternative folk, acoustic, pop rock type stuff, that's me. I always feel unprepared to talk about myself when it comes to music.
Mike has a really lovely singing voice. Please go check him out.
Ah, thanks. Thank you.
Click on him in Spotify so he makes fractions of a penny every time you do it.
Oh, hey, listen, if you just find me on Spotify and hit play and walk away, you don't need to listen.
Use every device you own at all times throughout the day, and then in a year you'll have 10 cents or whatever.
In a year, I'll have enough to afford to keep it on Spotify, basically. No, it's not that dire. I always feel a little unprepared about that stuff because I'm so used to talking about the podcast. Normally, when it's my turn to go, I do the closeout and I say, okay, you can follow, blah, 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 blah.
Okay, we'll get you to do the closeout after I've talked about me, because I haven't been talking about me enough.
Oh, okay. Well, Craig, how about you tell us a little bit about where we could find you?
Absolutely. You can mostly find me on Kneel Before Blog, so that's kneelbeforeblog.co.uk. I am reviewing every episode of Starfleet Academy. If you enjoy reading reviews that are at least 2,000 words long, then I'm your guy. It's on there. You can read very comprehensive analyses of everything this show is doing on there. There's an attached podcast called Kneel Before Pod, where we do deep dive discussions about your favorite nerdy things. Coming up, we have an episode about Avengers Age of Ultron, because there's some themes in there that I find really interesting in this era of franchises that never end. So there's a tease for the main theme of that. I'm assuming that's a conversation. We haven't had it yet, but that's going to happen. There's a monthly news podcast as well, where we break down news and trailers in the world of nerdy and sometimes not nerdy media. And there's the odd interview as well whenever someone deigns to talk to me. That does happen sometimes. So it's all there. You can listen to that and read all that and reach out to me on Blue Sky, the other place that we shall not name. That is a letter of the alphabet towards the end of the alphabet. You can find it there too, and on Facebook and so on. Or you can just go to kneelbeforeblog.co.uk. You can leave a comment. Either way, you'll find me on there. That's me. Mike, take us out.
All right. Thank you, Craig. We Are Starfleet is a podcast focused on Trek-positive coverage across the franchise of Trekkie shows. We are a big part of the Film Stories podcast network and features our main hosts, Craig McKenzie, Ashley Thomas, Mike Slamer, and Ian Buckley. And today, our guest has been Mr. Earl Green. Thank you, Earl, for coming on the show today. Really appreciate your thoughts and insights.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome back.
You can check out our website at www.wearestarfleetpod.com and follow on Blue Sky and Instagram at StarfleetPod. Thank you so much, everybody.
Oh my god, blobfishparty.com is available. I know what I'm doing after work. Blobfish Party!
Anyway, thanks for listening. Do your homework.